So Trump is a game changer by himself. Volodymyr Zelensky welcoming then the change in tone from the US president as the two spoke whilst at the UN General Assembly, and then Trump posted his thoughts on social media. Trump saying now he believes that Ukraine could win back all territory lost to Russia, a dramatic shift from the US leader's repeated calls for Kyiv to make concessions to end the war. Trump telling the Assembly he's open to tougher sanctions on Russia, as he said Russian economic weakness is the key. Well, let's have the latest reaction then from the Ukrainian president. He spoke about the trust between them.
President Trump, during phone conversations or dialogue, yes, he always said that, look, in autumn they will occupy it, we need to do something, and etc. And then one by one, he understood that Putin is just sharing some information which is far away of a real situation on the battlefield, far away of truth. And of course, then when now he trusts much more bigger to me.
Well, let's cross then to Kyiv, talk to our correspondent Gulliver Cragg, who joins us from there. Gulliver, apparent real change in the rhetoric at least. What's the reaction from there?
Well, the reaction I've seen on social media and among people I know is actually quite muted. This tweet or post on Truth Social from Trump did come after this rambling speech that he made, incoherent even by his own standards, full of untruths. Clearly, Trump is not somebody who can be trusted, even if Volodymyr Zelensky feels that Donald Trump now trusts him. A lot of people are saying, well, we'll see when he changes his mind in a couple of weeks. People are also drawing attention to the fact that he said in that post that he wished both sides well. I mean, a lot of Ukrainians find that absolutely disgusting, to see the US president wishing well to a country that they consider led by a war criminal and an army that is full of people who've committed war crimes, pretty well documented ones. So the reaction is not quite as celebratory as you might expect, also because this was not accompanied by any policy announcements from the US administration. But all that being said, as Volodymyr Zelensky put it, this is a major shift in Donald Trump's rhetoric, and a lot of credit, I think most Ukrainians would agree, does have to go to Volodymyr Zelensky and his team, who clearly saw the way to get through to Donald Trump and to paint a picture in which it's not Russia, the big, great power, that's the winner and Ukraine, the small, little loser. It's the other way around, that Ukraine is taking back territory against all odds at the moment. Volodymyr Zelensky stressed that in his meeting, that the Russian economy is not doing very well, in part because of Ukrainian deep strikes into Russia. And it does very much look as though Donald Trump was to some degree convinced by that. The question now is, what will it actually mean for policy? Some Ukrainian analysts are not just talking about the US president, who's very easily persuaded by whoever he spoke to, and taking him a bit more seriously and suggesting that this might actually be some kind of strategic move by Donald Trump, perhaps in order to see if it could get a different reaction out of Vladimir Putin, push him towards negotiations, or perhaps simply to of Western NATO allies, which is inconvenient for Donald Trump. He apparently didn't know quite what to say about that in his speech at the United Nations General Assembly, because he was negative, but didn't seem to want to be too negative, and perhaps he'd rather that attention was more on Ukraine and that there was a sense of unity on the Ukrainian issue between the United States and its European allies.
Gulliver, do Ukrainians really think they can get back their territory? And if so, how?
Well, until, I would say, early 2024, the overwhelming majority, according to polls, thought that they could and must. Now, polls suggest that about 60% think that they can. If you listen to pundits and people who are more informed, a lot of people more seem to be expecting a kind of frozen conflict situation, perhaps like South Korea and North Korea. But then the question really is, if Ukraine cannot get back its territory, then what happens? This territory remains occupied by Russia for how long? What are the security implications of that? And those are all very difficult questions to answer. Also, the human rights situation in the occupied Ukrainian territories is absolutely terrible. I believe Volodymyr Zelensky is going to speak about that later today when he addresses the General Assembly.
Gulliver, thanks very much. Gulliver Cragg there talking to us live from Kyiv.